I want to jump over to the defense now and talk about some question marks that we might have on the defensive side of the ball. There is no question that Oklahoma fans feel confident about this defense. I think anyone who's paid attention to Oklahoma in the last 3 years, you know that this defense is going to come and they're going to play, and they're going to be physical. They're going to be one of the top defenses in the country. They're going to be one of the top defenses in the SEC, no doubt. And you know what you're getting with Brent Venables. That's why Oklahoma hired him in. They wanted a guy that's defensive minded. They wanted a guy that's going to focus on the defensive side of the ball, get that defense right, because that's what's necessary when going into the SEC. So, despite the 6-7 season that Oklahoma had last season, the defense, it improved significantly. And even in year 2, you saw a huge jump from year 1. But year 3, that was by far the best defense that Oklahoma saw. And I've thrown out the word elite defense in the past, just because I think if you take this defense and put it on any other big team, any other successful team last season, I think even if you were to give Oklahoma's defense and gave that defense over to a Clemson or a South Carolina last season, if you gave that defense over to an Oregon last season, that is a defense that wins championships. That's the type of defense that can win you some big time games. The defense can't be good when the offense is not even complimenting them a little bit. And so I obviously they weren't. They were better than what the paper says they were. And I think most Oklahoma fans, most people that actually paid attention to Oklahoma, recognize that about this defense. And anyone who pays attention to college football believes in Brent Venables to deliver with his defense as well. I mean, this defense was a defense that was top 30 in scoring and total defense, rushing defense. They were also going against an extremely tough schedule last season, and it's going to be just as tough this season. But you've got an offense that Oklahoma fans believe can complement them very well, if not kind of take over some of the load. So that's one thing. I think there's a lot of optimism with certain marquee players that could really jump out. Of course, the biggest question I think that Oklahoma has on the defensive side of the ball is, and I think outside media members might be questioning this, or even outside fans might question this. Inside the program, or even fans that are close to the program, know that there's really not too much of a question mark about this. But the question mark would be, who's going to fill in the role of Ethan Downs, Billy Bowman, and Danny Stutzman? That's really the biggest question mark that you might have outside. But for those of us who are close to the program, understand this program, and have seen the growth from everyone on that defense, we know that there's guys like Kobe McKenzie, guys like Kip Lewis, guys like R. Mason Thomas, guys like Peyton Bowen, even Robert Spears Jennings. There's all of these guys that have stepped in, and they're all taking part of those leadership roles. And of course, I don't think there's anything to question about the talent that's over on the defensive side of the ball. But I think the one that I have mentioned several times this offseason, the one that I maybe have a little bit of a question mark, is the cornerback position. I do think that there's talent at the corner position, but how prepared are they to be showing themselves? Because you have to have depth in positions like that. And I'm just not sure about the depth. I'm hearing a lot of good things, and I think I'm getting a lot more confident about that depth the closer that we get. But I think you've got, guys, I think your main starters, with both of them being healthy, are Eli Bowen and Gentry Williams, and we have no question marks about how good they can be, but there's question marks about their health, because right now you're starting to hear that Eli Bowen is not going to be participating in full practices right now, and they might be holding off until closer to the end of fall, so closer to game 1, and that's a concern. That's a huge concern, because it sounded like something like when it first happened, don't worry, he's going to be back. They're putting him in a boot more for precautionary measures, and now it's starting to sound like it was a little bit more concerning than what we were really led on to believe. And then of course Gentry Williams, he's an SEC, like an all-time, you're talking like an All-American type player with Gentry Williams. But the big concern with him is the fact that he's he's missed 14 games the past 2 seasons, probably more than that, really. He's had some injury concern. I won't go as far to say that he's injury prone, but I know that there's injury concern with him, and so there's some health concerns with both of them, and so they're Gentry Williams is available, and so it's just how durable is he going to be going throughout the season? That's the big thing with him. And the depth is going to rely on really underclassmen. You don't really have anybody that's an upperclassman, any kind of veteran in the depth chart. And so that's what we're questioning. And you've got guys like Cortland Guillory who were thrown out there multiple times by multiple different media persons. And then you've also got coaches that are bringing him up. Brent Venables, I believe, brought him up at SEC Media Days. And so I think Cortland Guillory, he's one of those true freshmen that you really could see take on a big role. And you feel confident there, but then you've also got maybe Jacoby Johnson, a guy, he took some snaps last season, not too many, but how well is he going to transition? How well is he going to, kind of come in his progression into this season? That's what I'm curious to see. That's what I'm hopeful for him. I think Jacoby Johnson and Cortland Guillory, those are two guys that you love to see at your depth positions, but to lean on them and to rely on them to take over if Eli or Gentry is injured, I think is absurd. I think I was talking about this with JP and Trav over on their show. I believe that was last week. That I think Trav was the one that brought this up. I think you're going to see Kendall Dolby step out there at that corner position if one of them is injured, if either Eli or Gentry is injured. And so, you've got some questions there. Of course, I think you've got guys like Devon Jordan. You've got Jeremiah Newcomb. You've got a few others that you could name off that show some depth there. But I'm just curious because, again, it's not that I'm questioning how good they are. It's just that I don't have anything on paper to rely on, and very similar to the tight end position, for Oklahoma this season. So what are we going to get out of the depth at the cornerback position? That's the main concern is the depth there at cornerback. Again, I believe in them. I believe in this defense. I believe in the defensive staff. I believe in the defensive coaches to really get them in those ready positions. But with injury concerns there, that's the one position group that we're kind of questioning. When you go to the rest of the defense for the Oklahoma Sooners and look at it, specifically, I think the defensive end and the defensive tackle, really the defensive line, I don't think anybody's questioning how good they're going to be. I don't think anybody's questioning if there's even depth. I think the biggest question is who are going to be your main key starters all season long? Who are going to be the guys that jump out above the rest? Who are going to be the guys that are your all SEC team type guys? Because you have such a stacked defensive line, and on that defensive line, even into that second level, when you look at your linebacker group and what you've got there, you're so deep in so many positions that I don't even know where to go from there, and who to really pick as the standout guy. Because of course you've got R. Mason Thomas. He's going to be the clear starter, the guy that's going to be all SEC, the guy that's who was all SEC second team last season, or maybe it's second team preseason this season. But he's got a lot of growth potential too, and that's why he came back. He possibly could have gone in the NFL draft last season. He probably would have been pretty late in the draft, but he could have gone, and he came back. Hopefully, you can see some sort of progression with him. I think there's a lot of talent around him. You've got guys. I think Marvin Jones Jr. transferred from Florida State. I think he's going to be a big former 5-star guy that's really yet to show you what he's capable of. You've got PJ Adebawore, who's a third-year guy, I believe, and so a lot of upside. But some of the injuries have kind of limited him a little bit the last couple of years. But he's a guy that a lot of people are talking about. A lot of players have even been talking about PJ and what he's capable of. Taylor Wine, another guy that you're hearing out of that. Who knows? Taylor Wine could really shock a lot of people with how good he turns out to be this upcoming season. And of course, Danny Okoye, another guy. You've got Sammy out there. I'm not even going to butcher his last name because I don't have it written down in front of me to remind me how to say his last name. So, I think Sammy's another guy that you look at that could be that outside guy that really comes in and shocks you, shows you how talented he is. So there's not really anything there on the outside that I think you're questioning. It's just more or less who's going to be your main starters. I think R. Mason Thomas is your lock-in guy. But outside of that, you really have a lot of question marks. You got three guys that are really competing for that top spot on the other side to try to complement R. Mason Thomas. And of course, you're going to see a lot of rotations there. So you don't have any concerns that one of them or any of them aren't going to be starting. But you talk about that defensive line and how deep they are. I think you think of what Dejon Terry or David Stone. You've got Grayson Halton, and of course Jaden Jackson. You've got so much up front that you can really lean on there, and it's so deep, it's so strong. You're going to be able to rotate them in and out so often that you can keep them fresh, keep them healthy, and you can keep them going. You can keep a lot of pressure there, and of course, again, going into the linebacker room with Kip Lewis and Kobe McKenzie. You've got other guys like Kendall Daniels that transferred in from Oklahoma State. Samuel Omasigo is kind of grouped into that linebacker crew as well. You've got trying to think of some guys that haven't really been mentioned a whole lot. I think James Nesta, that's a guy that hasn't been mentioned a whole lot in this offseason. And then maybe even Taylor Heim. I think that's another guy that hasn't been mentioned a whole lot, but some guys that you've got in that depth as well that may see some playing time. Again, not a whole lot, maybe similar to what you saw from Jaron Kanik last season. But this defensive line going into that second level, into that linebacker room, there's really is no question marks. Oklahoma is going to be great at those positions.